Good evening. How's it going, Jason?
I am doing well, sir. How are you?
Awesome. Holy shit, it's been a long time.
Yeah,
I How long has it been? Probably fifth. Jesus, when did you move?
I came here in 2003. So,
Wow.
yeah, it's been a long time.
Wow. And before we get anything, again, sorry to hear about your dad.
Hmm.
We all knew him well. We loved him, and he kept us shooting straight. So I know you were here. You were in town for his funeral, right?
Yeah, that was probably one of the, it's weird when someone passes, but they can still manage to help you. Like his contacts actually were the ones responsible to get me actually to the funeral. Like it was fucked up because of the COVID protocol, but I was still able to say goodbye and stuff like that. And so, yeah.
Yeah. And that's you know what that's what we all want. I mean, I lost my dad about a year before your dad passed.
Yeah.
So I couldn't imagine being on the other side of the planet. And even when
Well,
you get here, it's not like it used to be.
oh, it was surreal, to be honest. Like, is one of these things where even the whole event, like I had all of my devices turned off. I think it was the cat that woke me up or something. And when you live abroad, any call that comes in at 3 in the morning is bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I just, like I got up and, the cat's going bonkers. So I was like, what the hell? So I just checked my phone and there's like 5 messages from my dad's friend's business line. So I'm like, oh, what? So
Yeah.
I saw the last message was this like cryptic, like, call me, it's an emergency. And I was
Right.
like, oh shit. So they filled me in. He was, classic Donnie Teale. He was out hunting. I think he just overexerted himself, had a heart attack, and that was pretty much it. So I had, within a couple of days, I had jumped on a plane and came over here, and it was like just landing in, like just a bizarro world of what I remembered Brandon to be. Like it was just fucked up.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's not what you remembered. And as far as someone passing, doing what they loved, they couldn't have been written any better for your dad.
Well,
Like,
yeah.
really.
Well,
It's
that
just
I like how, like it was just, like the whole thing, like it was good to be home, but there was this certain how can I put it, like instances where you just felt like it was like fate punching you in the balls. And
Mhm.
one of the issues, in order to get back to Korea, I had to get like this health check, and this was like one of these things where Korea, I wouldn't say they tried to blame COVID on foreigners, but they put a lot of like stupid extra precautions on us. Uh,
Really.
oh yeah. So one of them, in their bright idea of like this is going to control COVID, they said, okay, all foreigners who have a long-term visa, such as I do, like a resident visa, have to get a health check. And I said, okay, well, like health check, you mean like I've got to get a PR COVID test? They're, no. You just have to get a health check. And I was like,
That's it.
okay, what do you, like, what do I have to prove? They're like, don't, just get the doctor to write down that you have no, quote, COVID like symptoms, unquote. So, uh, my brother's wife, Courtney, she works in Souris. That's where dad had passed. So
Yeah.
I had to go there, and I'm sitting in the room, and the doctor that basically worked on my dad comes in, and he's the guy like that's checking me. So he's like, oh, I just got to say, like, we tried everything we could. And, if we managed to even save him, he would not be the same. And I told him, I said, like, if you knew my dad, you knew that he was not going to be one of those guys that goes into the, elderly life, decrepit and in a cane and stuff like that. I said, if, as shitty as it was that he passed, this was the way that he wanted to go. He shot a buck. He was with friends. He was doing his yearly hunts. That's the way that he wanted to go. Like that's,
Like I said, he died again. I'm terribly
mm,
sorry to hear that your dad passed, but he died again doing exactly what he lived to do.
yeah,
And it's a sort of thing that you don't hear that very often. That'd be like me going, heaven forbid I died on my motorcycle, but I mean, people be saying the same thing. You
Well,
know,
it's exactly it. And like there is a lesson, I think, like uh in all of this stuff, like it's shitty that, like, because I had to do like basically 4 weeks of quarantining on either side, and you sort of sit there when you're like stuck at home, and kind of the shit that comes into your head is that the, he lived his life the best that he could. And I mean, that classic phrase, the good die young, I think really this is the case where in the last 22 years of your life, say, if you're sitting stuck in a bed, like, you look at all the cases of COVID now within the home care, elderly homes, things like that. Is that how you want to go? Or is it, with your friends, with the buck, doing what you love? Like, if you had to make the choice.
well, and the thing is, Don was always in a great mood. Like anytime he came by the shop, how's it going,
Yep.
Don? Always great.
Yep.
That was it. Always great. He was always great. And I mean, yeah, I mean, and would he want to be would you want your dad to be in the hospital during this time when it is a clusterfuck in those places?
Well, exactly. And like that was the thing. Like we always jokingly called him Mr. Perfect. And that was another one of those things where uh he always like, this is a guy, I'm not sure if you ever noticed, like he was missing a finger. I'm not sure if you ever heard the
I
story
never
behind
noticed
that.
that. No.
Yeah, when I was in elementary school, this is like blows my mind how tough this guy was. He had an accident. He slipped and fell while he was hunting musket. Went to grab his gun, and it blew his fingers off.
Oh my
Now,
god.
think about it. This is probably, geez, I would say 30 years ago. So, like, I was in grade one, maybe kindergarten. I can't remember. So it's probably longer than that. I'm 42 now. So, but he picked up his fingers, what he could find of them, drove himself to the hospital. They managed to attach most of them,
Oh.
and he just truckered on. Like he just, and that's where, like, we always say, like, if you ask him, how you doing, Donnie? I'm perfect. That was always his response. Like, never once did he bitch and moan. And he would go through shit like that, blowing off his fingers. Dad, how you doing? I'm perfect.
Yeah,
And
he
that
was
was it.
always perfect.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. And you know what? The funny thing is, like, I can go out, I can shoot a buck, I can gut a buck, I can skin a buck, I can
Hmm.
take that thing apart. I can't watch Grey's Anatomy with my wife, man. If you show me a human, like, if I get hurt,
Yeah.
I just turn white. Like I can't, I can't handle my own shit. I'd be passing out, bleeding from my fingers being gone. That'd be the
Oh,
end of me.
well, yeah. Like, I don't know. Like, for me, it was, I think, because I grew up with like the hunting, like my wife is the same way. Like, if we go to the hospital for whatever, she's like, she can't handle it, and I'm asking the guy the questions as he's like stitching me up. Like, I'm just like, and
Dude.
like I still laugh because I got into a motorcycle accident probably about 12 years ago. A guy backs out, and basically I'm coming down a hill, he backs out, I hit his trunk and do the flip over it.
Oh.
And luckily, like, I had like helmet and gloves on, but like where my gloves ended and sort of where my jacket stopped, I
Yeah.
basically just, right, just took a chunk of, skin and meat off there. And same thing, like, I'm in the hospital and the guy's like doing stuff and he just keeps looking at me like, are you okay? I'm like, oh, yeah, fine, continue. He's like, uh, do you want medicine? Like, because he's trying to figure out the English word for like painkiller. I'm like, no, it's fine. Just, bandage that shit up. Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I went to the hospital. When did I get it done? A couple years ago, just over a year ago, maybe 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We have two kids, so I got the snip. And there's two ways they
Ah,
can
yep,
do that. One, they can give you just a freezing. They just freeze it. You're awake. You're watching them do
yep.
this. And the other one is conscious sedation. Well,
Mm-hmm.
my wife is in the waiting room with me, like they're prepping me for this surgery, and the nurse comes out. She goes, "So, are we gonna are we gonna put you out, or are we just gonna freeze you?" And my wife looks at her and she goes, "You better knock him the hell out because he'll pass out on you either way." But here's the funny thing about that: they give you fentanyl,
Oh, wow.
And of course, I'm lying there, and they strap you to the table like you're being crucified. So your arms are out
Yeah.
and whatever. And I asked the girl, I'm like, doesn't this shit kill people? She goes, well, not here. She goes, it's the hospital. I go, good point. Well, I guess you're awake the whole time. But what
Yeah.
fentanyl does is it prevents your brain from being able to create new memories while you're on it.
Oh, wow.
So I'm totally awake. I haven't like I looked at the clock. It was 2:15. I blinked and it was 3 o'clock. It
Oh,
was the
wow.
weirdest because they put you down, then they take you out. But here's the thing: I had just come back from Vegas, and my wife and I had gone to this show. You've probably heard of the puppetry of the penis.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, where they fold it and they origami their ding and whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
apparently I came out and she goes, I go, so everything's good. She goes, yeah. She goes, but you had a good trip. I go, what are you talking about? She goes, well, you're pretty entertaining. The whole time you're asking if we could release one of your hands so you could show us whatever the burger is. I'm like, holy shit. So, surgery for me, I guess if I had to tough it out, I would, but I'm just bad for that stuff. And I mean, right now, like you said, your dad was tough as nails.
Yeah.
He was in the hospital for a very short bit, maybe,
Hmm.
during this situation, and with the way we're handling this COVID debacle, I don't get it. Like, is it just the defiance? Like, what? How are you guys getting it together? You have what, 51 billion people or 51 million
Yep.
people there?
51 million people.
We have far less,
Yep.
and we have a problem, and
Well,
we're not handling it well.
I like that's what I was trying to figure out because like you have to understand like here in South Korea, I would say the landmass is about the size of Manitoba.
Right,
It's 70% mountainous. So that means that most of the population is living in the valleys. There's not enough land, so they build up. Like my apartment is on the 24th floor, and that's a small to average apartment block. Okay.
right,
Um, and it's we are jam packed. Seoul, if you go to Seoul, 5 p.m. line one on the subway, it is shoulder to shoulder, ass to nuts. Like it
right.
is packed, and that should be a breeding ground for COVID. Like they should be overrun. It should be like zombie apocalypse, but it's not somehow. And I think what it part of it was the we're like overloaded with masks. Like you do not leave your house without putting on a mask.
Right.
And I think part of that is because yeah, you got to take an elevator down, you know, but there was never any real bullshit pushback to a lot of the we never actually locked down though. That was the weird part. Like uh they restricted group sizes, but like I mean it was never what I experienced back when I came home. So yeah.
Well, it's worse now than it was when you were back because now
Jesus Christ.
you I can't have anybody from outside my household.
Yeah.
Nobody. Um, the kids are all out of school, and the kids are only out of school in the cities though. Brandon, Winnipeg, I think Dauphin. But if our kids were going to school in Forest, they'd be in
Mhm.
school right now. It
Weird.
doesn't make sense. Like it's you've got Walmart still busy. Like I don't know how they're counting, but these places are busy. The barber shops are shut down. The gyms are shut down. And they only shut down personal services and gyms. That was it. Everything else went down in capacity. So I don't get it.
Yeah, I like his. I was trying to figure that out because I was listening to your previous episode. That, I sent you the message there, and
Mhm.
like here, what they did was like number one, contact tracing was second to none. Now that did create a couple of problems because hilariously, a lot of people got dinged on adultery.
What?
And like, because what will happen is they put out this public emergency system that says, and it was like really detailed in the beginning. So you'll get these messages like patient one and patient two went to this area, they went to this restaurant, and then they went to this motel. And like you can put two and two together there. And if the husband then is say like patient one and somebody else is patient two, and they have the exact same location. And that happened numerous times. Now they just give the general area, but a lot of times what is happening is it's like the contact tracing, they're just on it. Like when I go into a restaurant, which are not, well, they're down in capacity, but I've never really noticed any difference, really, to be honest. But Korea works on, we have this messenger app called Kakao Talk, and it's like I would say 99% of the people use it. It's just your standard Korean messaging system, and it does everything. And what you do is you shake your phone, and the QR code will pop up, and you scan it, and that just tags you at that location.
Right.
Should anything happen, you'll get notified. The information is then sent to the government. Nobody has a problem with this. Like nobody is trying to think of themselves as Jason Bourne and I don't want the government knowing where I am. It's like, dude,
Yeah.
you're at the fucking Starbucks. Go get yourself checked out. And that's basically what it is. They took all that bullshit away. The only issue that they had was for us as foreigners, there's a little bit of xenophobia. So, there was an outbreak in one of the foreigner areas in Seoul called Itaewon, and for a long time that was like the den of iniquity. But now it's sort of the hot place for ethnic food and whatnot. But it's also a place for gay Koreans to go and mingle and just be themselves because it's a very conservative country here. So there was a breakout in one of those nightclubs, and they sort of skipped over the fact that 95% of the clientele were gay Koreans, and then they just focused in on the foreigners. And so I got a phone call. I've got a contact from in the police department here, and he's like, "Jason, were you in Seoul?" And I'm like, "Dude, that's all the way across the country. Why would I be in Seoul?" "Well, were you at a nightclub in Itaewon?" And I'm like, I'm like, "Inspector, I am a 40-year-old married man. Why would I be there?" "Oh, well, it is many foreigners went there." And I'm like, "Well, you should also check your own staff because I think many of the young people that you employ might have been there as well." "Oh, no, 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 no."
Oh no,
And
never.
and so it was a shit show here because they were pulling teachers out of classrooms, getting them tested, putting their medical history on display to prove to the parents that their foreigner was not one of those dirty foreigners. That was
Right.
40 cases. There was an outbreak that kicked everything off, which I think now they're linking to what actually brought COVID to Korea, was one of the cult-like churches in the city of Daegu, where they had, I think, over 1,500 to 2,000 cases linked to one church.
Wow.
And they had an outreach center in Wuhan, China. Connect the dots on that one.
Yeah, there you go. Yep, that makes
And
sense.
and so I told the inspector, I said, like, why aren't you going after the churchgoers? Like after that incident with 2,000 cases, say, why aren't you rounding everyone up that goes to church on Sunday? "Oh, well, that's and so they just focused in on that. So like that's what we're kind of dealing with here. Um, just a little while ago, they did like the forced testing for a lot of the foreigners in Seoul, and how ridiculous that was. I'm not against testing, but what I'm against is if I'm sitting in an office next to a Korean, I'm the one that has to go and spend my day standing in line at an overloaded COVID testing center. My Korean colleague, nothing.
Really?
And
That's
like, yeah, like they got a lot of blowback, but like these old guys that sort of run this shit were like, "Oh, well, they're foreigners. We don't know what to they're into on the weekend." And it's like, yeah, but we're not the ones congregating in churches. We're not the ones who are going to the bathhouses, and that's where most of the clusters were coming from. And it was but that's kind of what you deal with.
well, and here we've got a church group in I think they're in Steinbach and
Yeah.
I think Winkler, and they're protesting and they're having their masses and this, that, and everything. I mean, I'm all for religion. I'm all
Yep.
for believing what you believe. I was raised Catholic. That's my thing.
Yep.
My kids go to a Catholic school. I have nothing against organized religion. What I have a
Nope.
problem with is people blatantly defying this
Yeah.
and doing it over and over and over again when they're saying, please don't do this. Like, I have a friend, a client of mine, who's a bishop. So he's
Mm.
up in the ranks, a
Yeah.
bishop. He shut all of his churches down. He said, nope, we're just closed. We'll do them through Zoom, and that's it. And he had zero blowback from it. He said, everybody got it. It's like, it's no different than having a gas leak in the church. We shouldn't all be in here right now.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Well, that's what, like, most of the churches here, like, I know a lot of, like, I run sort of like a community website here, and most of the churches that were sort of kind of a little bit with it, yeah, they just switched to Zoom because we have probably one of the fastest internet. Everything is connected here, so there's no problem. But there was these sects of, like, I can't even call them religion. They're cult, like, there's a lot of weird cults here. Like, remember the
Right.
Moonies back in the 80s?
Yeah. Yeah.
That they came from here. So there's a
Really?
lot of, yeah, there's a lot
Jesus.
of weird churches. And that particular one, it was called Shincheongji. Like, it was one of those things where it's like a church, but the head guy is one of those old perverts he's the Messiah, and of course he has to get with the younger girls, that sort of thing.
You got
And
spray
that
the
was,
seed everywhere.
yeah, exactly. So that was sort of the kind of shit that was going on in the beginning. And then because Korea is sort of a conservative conformist society, people sort of got with the program because there was this a little bit of a witch hunt. Nobody wanted to be on that side of the pitchfork. And slowly they got into it. There was still, like, as I said, like a lot of the bathhouses, which a lot of the elderly who don't really give a shit anyway, they go to get a little scrub and dub, and that's how the virus was. Well, yeah, it's the bathhouses here. Like, it's like, you go to the gym a lot.
Yeah.
I've been trying to. It's a weird thing where the gym, you'll be linked to a bathhouse usually, and that means that when you shower, it's a big open room with pools and showers. Everybody just gets naked,
Yeah.
goes and scrubs, and there's a kind of a usual trend of, like, people will help scrub each other's back as well. Yeah, so
It's friendly.
well, like the first time I went, I have a tattoo on my back, and I, like,
Yeah.
this dude thought maybe I drew it on. I don't know. So, like, I'm just sort of doing my shit in the corner, and this, like, older guy just starts, like, scrubbing my back, like, trying to get the tattoo off, and I'm like, dude, like, I'm cool. I'm cool. Like, just give me some space. I'm cool. And I asked my wife that. I was like, what the fuck did that guy do that? And he's, oh, he's just looking after you. And I'm like, I don't need that kind of
Well,
like,
cultures are different, man. I mean,
yeah.
they probably find it weird when every shower is separate in a gym here if they came here, right? Like, it's
Yeah, it's a little bit like that. Like, there's how can I put it? They have this, it's called like Zhong, and everything is sort of a it's like a family, and it's a weird thing where, like, men will hold hands and they'll have their arms around each other, and that's nothing.
right.
Um, if you do that, say it more in public with a woman beyond holding hands, then that's sort of like a lewd act. So it's
Really.
a weird little bit of a difference there. And, like, even with the like, I did martial arts for a long time. That's how I busted up all of my knees. And
Yeah.
we went to the world championships one time, and, like, it was such a weird difference because my master, who was, like, quite high up, he was just this, like, just this roly poly kind of funny guy. And when we saw the Americans, and it was like, I literally remember their dude standing above his students, like, screaming lines from, like, Full Metal Jacket, like, show me your war face. And my
Really.
master just looked at, and he's like, what, why? And I was like, I don't know. They're Americans. And he's like, ah. And for us, it was just, we were all families, brothers and sisters, competing. And that was like, there was some weird bum taps in there. Like, that was kind of like an odd
Well,
thing, but
on the American side, they probably watch too much Karate Kid. I mean, that's a Cobra Kai kind of thing. Sweep the leg
yeah.
and no mercy, sir.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what it felt like. And then, because I remember we bumped into this guy, and like my master always sort of gave like a few too many taps on the bum if you did good. And it was sort of this funny thing where like he comes up and he's got like, you know, the high level belt on and stuff like that, and these guys are bowing, and he saw my scores from the competition, so he's like, "Oh, Jason, good, good, good," and he gives me this like, ch-ch-ch.
Yeah.
And I could just see like the dude's faces like, what was that? I'm like, "Oh, your master doesn't give you a kill," and they're like, "Oh, hell no, 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 no," and I was like, but that was sort of how like that's how they did it, you know.
Well, and I think that when you talk about that, and you talk about how in Korea it's about that whole family vibe where
Yeah,
they're really all in this together to get this thing done.
yeah, yeah,
And there's not going to be pushback, because if you want to be that asshole cousin that's going to say, "Oh, this is all bullshit, and they're just trying to control us," it's not helping anybody. And we're getting that here.
no,
And Manitoba is
uh,
one of the I always thought that Manitoba was the friendliest place in the country.
no,
I
yeah.
I've never seen so much um, ignorance in something that should be a simple fix. Like, you guys
Well,
figured it out.
well, I to be honest, like when you're out and then you come back in, it was a real you sort of see things differently. And I've noticed this the last couple of times I've come back home, where that friendly vibe has dissipated. And I think you mentioned in other programs about how it's all me, me, me.
Hmm.
And that's what I really noticed was like with the masks, people would get pissy about wearing the masks. I was at Sobeys, and you know, like this dude's just screaming at the poor security guard. The fact that you need a security guard at the Sobeys
Hmm.
to tell people to wear masks and stuff blew me away. Like here, it's no question. Everybody, you leave the house, you put your mask on. Um, a lot of people even wear them in the car. You get
Yeah.
delivery, you have your mask on. And I was just really blown back by this because people were so pissed. Like they were just like, you know, who are you to tell me to do? Well, if you want to go in the bank, like just what the fuck is the issue?
Just put it on. I mean, yeah, and
Yeah,
here's the sad thing. Like, you're talking about guys that are probably between 35 and 65
yeah,
yelling at a kid who's probably 17 or 18 at that
yeah,
door. I got asked during the lockdown to help them out over at Sobeys. Like,
yeah,
would you mind just sort of watching the door?
yeah,
Um, because these guys are blasting people. And I mean, I bounced for years. I mean, I didn't think it was
yeah,
going to be a lot like that. But I'll tell you what, I had a guy get about 5 inches from my face when I said, you need to take a cart," and everybody had their masks on. You
yeah,
sanitize, but then you had to take a cart, and everybody takes a cart because that's how many people are allowed in the store. That's how
yeah,
they kept count. Okay, so go to keep counts. We need you to take the and it was only go for essentials. Just buy what you need. Get a big shop
yeah,
done, right? I only need one or two things, and I don't need a car to go. Well, first of all, the fact that you're only getting one or two things says a lot. Secondly, you need to take a cart
yeah,
to go in. And this guy is right up in my grill. Goes, "Sir, I highly recommend you take about 3 steps back
yeah.
or leave. It's up to you. But why make this a scene?" And clearly, this is one of those assholes that no one has ever told him what to do, and he's going to go through life like that. Well, sir, we're all going by this rule. We're all abiding by it because we want to get back to normal as soon as we can. And we can't get back like it. The numbers are flipping skyrocketing because people are it went from, I think you heard this on the last podcast, I said we've gone
Mm,
from scared of it to pissed off about it. But in
yeah.
between there, we didn't do what we needed to do to get rid of it.
What what like it's really interesting to me because like again like when I flew home I messaged my wife and I said like holy shit like I'm flying into a code red lockdown and my wife is just like um how she goes nobody is next to each other, you live in
I know.
houses, and I'm like I said like and I told her I said sweet I don't understand it. And when I was around, like she's like, are there like people are they congregating or are there parties? I was like, no, like I said I just can't figure out where it is coming from because here, as I said, like you can see where it comes from when people go to the bathhouse before they like kind of shut them down. And yeah, you're sitting in a cesspool or like a whatever petri dish of God knows what other kind of bacteria. But back home, you live in your house, you're distanced from your neighbors.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
And here's the
And
thing:
yeah.
we live separate from each other for the most part, even working. I mean, uh, if I have a mask on and you have a mask on, we're in a sanitized space. You're in my chair for 15 to 20 minutes. You
Yeah.
leave, I sanitize again. It's fine. We have
Yeah.
never had an outbreak. And I tell you what, our um, contact tracing was shitty. It's the shits in Manitoba. I'll tell you, we had a sign-in sheet at the barbershop, which is fine.
Yeah.
We have sign-in sheets when I show houses. We have a declaration form. We sign it
Mm.
so we can trace that. It is so low tech. We might as well be using flipping stone tablets or carrier pigeons for this shit. It doesn't make any sense. We have the technology to check in
Yeah.
anywhere with Snapchat, with whatever. You can check in
Yeah.
anywhere you want, but we can't get this shit down. I'll tell you what. I go to Walmart, I go to Sobeys, I go to anywhere. I have yet to sign a
Yeah.
when's the last place I signed? I signed a COVID tracing thing. I went to the conservation office the other day to get my fishing license.
Yeah.
That's the first time I've signed one of those, except for maybe when we went to a restaurant about 2 months ago when you were still allowed to do that.
Yeah.
We signed that because you had to be the same household. So my wife and I went for dinner. And yeah, you
Yeah.
sign the contract. That's it. You don't have this in any major session, in any major centers, nowhere. No gas stations, no nothing. So you can have an outbreak anywhere. How the hell are you going to know who was there?
Jesus Christ. Like, well, that was like when I flew in, like this was the thing. Um, like I'll explain to you the procedures to kind of compare. When I flew in, I was expecting something. So I got into Vancouver, I go through normal passport control, and I'm one of those guys that like I need to have everything planned. So I've got my passport, I've got everything, and I'm like ready. And so
Yeah.
the dude is just like looks at me. He's like, why are you here? I said, okay, I'm coming in for my dad's funeral. He's like, okay. And I'm like, okay, what are the what's the procedure? And he kind of like looks around. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, the COVID procedure. And he like just sort of like picks up this piece of paper and then kind of hands it to me. And I'm like, what's this? He's like, that's the rules. And he kind of, like, he's like, now, clear the line. So I was like, oh shit. Okay. So I'm like, all right, when I fly into Winnipeg, like that's when it's going to be, code red.
Yeah.
Fuck, and it's going to be outbreak time. So I get in and Winnipeg is empty, like the
Yeah.
airport. So my sister-in-law dropped off her car for me. So I was like, again, I get the keys from the desk and I asked the lady, like, okay, like what's the procedure? And she's like, well, did you download the Arrive Canada app? I was like, yeah. Well, go home. And so, like I drive by myself, I go home, and the Arrive Canada app, like every morning, you say like you just basically put I'm okay, and that was your check-in for your
That's it.
quarantine. I believe the police came by one time, but literally like the guy like rings the doorbell, like it was like knock knock ginger, like he rings the doorbell, and I'm like running, yeah, and he's just like, Jason Teale, yeah, are you okay? Yeah, no symptoms, no, okay, and he
Have a
just
great
like
day.
runs back. I'm like,
Jesus.
so compare this to, I think I did get a call from the government too, like just same shit. Like, are you feeling okay? Are you showing any signs? Yep. Check. Okay, done. When I flew into Korea, the plane touches down. They give you these forms. Now, I have not left the airport yet, so you detailed all of this shit. Like, I've got my health check in, and now you need actually a PCR COVID test as well. You go to station 1, they check your temperature, they ask you some basic health questions, are you feeling sick? Nope. Station 2, you download the tracking app. Now
Yeah.
this app is on your phone, it tracks you GPS, and if you let it sit for any longer Then an hour, it will notify you and the government because, so you don't just chuck your phone and run around.
Yeah.
And you have a secondary phone number that they can also check. Then you go into your passport control. I had a little bit of a hiccup because I didn't have the dates because the health check had to be within 2 days. So
Yeah.
that was a fun. The offices where you shouldn't go to outside
Yeah.
the passport control. I was in there for a good long time.
Ugh.
And if anyone from the Souris hospital is listening, thank you. They saved my ass because I emailed them at like 3 a.m. local time there.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm in airport jail. I need something that shows I'm there. And they like sent me an image. The guy was happy. I get through. So you grab your bags. They put you on a special bus. Okay. So you're marked with a sticker. They put you on a special bus. They take you to the bullet train station. You get to wherever you're going. Second special bus right to your house. You're
Right.
locked in there for the 2 weeks. You're assigned a caseworker. She
Okay.
drops off. Now, check this out. She drops off food and digital thermometers, masks, water, anything that you need. They drop it off at your door and they check on you every single day. You check your temperature twice a day. By the third day, I was taken to get my COVID test, first one. Then, back home to quarantine. On the last day, I got my COVID test. And then once I was cleared, the test results came within a couple of hours. I was free to go. But that's how shit was like. You realize how seriously they were taking that.
Well, they took it for sure. I'm going to show you. I don't know if you can see this on your screen, but can you see that? Is that made out at all? Or not really.
Not really. This is a big white
Oh, there you go.
blob. Oh, there we go. Yeah, no exposure detected. Yeah.
Okay. Considering how many cases there are in Manitoba, I've had that thing on my phone since January.
Yeah.
And it's never gone off, ever. So I have a feeling that one doesn't work, or two,
Yeah.
people aren't putting their little number in when they get COVID, because heaven forbid if it goes off when you're where you shouldn't be. But do you think it's a matter of money? Like, why is it that we shit the bed on this? Like, is it because Korea has more cash flow? Do they have a better way of doing this? Or did they just fall in line and said, screw it, this is how we're going to get this done? And everybody said, yep, we agree, and did it.
I think it was part of money, but it's also part that what I really noticed, what the difference I noticed was when I came home to Manitoba, there was a lot of general pushback for current technology. That was a big thing. Korea's really based, even more so than Japan. Like everybody thinks Japan is quite futuristic.
Right.
They're dated compared to what the shit that's going on here. So anything connected to your phone will get picked up immediately with procedures. Like grandmothers, like my mother-in-law is like a whiz on her cell phone, and
Right.
for that reason they can put out like these alerts, they can put the technology in and get it done, and people will generally pick up on it, like the contact tracing through the messenger system. That's just commonplace now. You go to get your McDonald's, there's a little QR code scanner thing. You just and that's the technology. Like they made it so much easier. You don't have to punch anything in. You just shake your phone, the QR code comes up, ding, and you're off to the races. And so like when I was back home, I did notice there was a lot of like, well, what if we don't have a cell phone? What if I don't want to use my data and there's no Wi-Fi and all this kind of shit? And I'm like, well,
Get one.
Take that extra step. Like,
Yeah.
and that was the problem. Like people were not wanting to go over a bump this big to overcome one of the largest pandemics in current history. And that was the biggest problem I see. Like, yeah, sorry it inconveniences you. Like, yeah, there's businesses are shut down, but it's because people are not willing to go this far to protect themselves and stop the spread. And that's what's impacting local businesses. That's why people are losing their jobs. And, if you just dial it back, it's just because, like the parties and shit over Christmas. Like it sucks, but you know,
Well, I mean, and it's you're right. If people took just a step, like the masks were a big inconvenience. Are you shitting me? It's a mask. Get over yourself. It went from. Go ahead.
yeah. Well, I just mean that, like, yeah, like the masks, like, and the worst part is, I think that's also one of the things I noticed. Like here, we had a mask shortage, and what the government did was they stepped up and they said, like, um, get these masks. Like, I don't know. I think that a lot of masks were sent to China. Like, I don't know. Like, Korea's always had masks and good masks
Right.
at that, like the N94 or something like that.
Mhm.
So we had a mask shortage, and they put us on a quarantine thing, but they ramped up production of like high quality masks so quickly that now we're just like overloaded. So you can get, like 20 packs of masks. And that was because the government stepped in and said, like, look, you're going to produce masks. You're not going to charge over $1.50 for 2 masks,
Yeah.
and everybody gets a mask. And I didn't see that sort of stepping up. So when I came home, it was really alien to me to see like people with like, bandanas and like tube socks around
Yeah.
their faces and shit like that. And I'm just like, what? Where are the masks? And my mom's like, well, like we can get these like flimsy dental masks, but I'm like,
Yeah.
but what about like the high quality stuff? Oh, well, uh, emergency services. And when I talked to Courtney, they're like, oh yeah, like all of our shit's outdated. We can't even use the stuff that we have in stockpile because it's expired, shit like that,
Well, and
and
we're
I'm,
using. It's nuts. Like we use like cloth masks or triple layer masks or
yeah,
medical masks, and it shouldn't have been that hard to find them. Like I tell you, when this
yep,
first started, you couldn't find masks anywhere. We have a brewery over in Neepawa Farmery, and they started producing hand sanitizer
yeah, yeah,
like crazy. So some people stepped up. Some people were making them. Some people were doing whatever they could to get out there. But I I think that what we've got is a high level of ignorance,
yeah,
and you guys are you're high tech. You guys are basically you're living 20 years ahead of we are. How you're living 20 years ahead of us, and you guys have evolved as far as information technology, where you can get the information out. You
yeah,
are willing to share that information quickly because you know that there's a big benefit to it. Here,
yeah,
it's like we're living in the back hillbilly country of in Alabama. Like people are
yep.
so goddamn, it doesn't make any sense, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. And they're still digging their heels in. They're still saying, "Nope, I'm not going to." Did you get vaccinated? Is that a thing yet? Have you
Yeah,
gotten
well,
vaccinated there?
that's actually, here's the funny part. As much as I'm like tooting Korea, they dropped the ball on the vaccine because right before, I think probably late summer, maybe the fall, we had 0 cases for like
Really?
a couple of weeks. And country of 51 million people, we had 0 cases for a few days. And that's when the big push was for the vaccine. So the government was like, vaccine, nah, we'll let you guys take that. And then we had a huge spike around Christmas time. There was this huge spike in cases, and by spike I mean like we were up over 1,000 cases for the entire country, and not just in one area. Um, and so then they started like scrambling to get whatever they could, and they're a little bit behind the ball. So they're just now getting into more vaccinating and stuff like that. But again, you go back to that information technology. The same messaging app has a really good mapping system. They didn't like Google, so they made their own, which is standard for
Mhm.
Korea. But on my map, it will tell me which clinics have leftover doses of the vaccine. And then this is real time information. And I
Right.
can then like contact that and get my name put on the list. And if there's one available, they'll send it to me. But like it's all over the city. I can just zoom in and it'll tell me like, there's like 3 leftover vaccinations here. You can go there and get it.
Well, they'll
It's
send it
this.
to you, so you'll just do it yourself.
Oh no, no, you just go to the clinic. Like you just call
Okay.
them, and it's like first come first serve for the leftover. But that's all like real time data right into the app. So like I just check on my local one here. If there's one, I can just go over and see if I can get it.
Well, the thing is, there and there, you didn't need here in Manitoba. It's a race for the vaccine now because
Yeah.
people didn't fall in line, and we fucked up. Like we really, really screwed up. And now it's well, they're not going to listen. Let's just get everybody pinned. So yeah, we're getting vaccinated,
Yeah.
but the numbers are still climbing. So I think that you're right. There's a better way to do it. Manitoba, Canada could have done it a hell of a lot better, and we didn't. We didn't, and we're blaming who? Who do you blame? Like it's
Yeah.
our own
True.
behavior.
Yeah. Well, I think that that's sort of the thing. Like it's always been like, oh, the government. Well, what did you do? Well, I didn't really fall in line, but somebody else should have done it for me.
Someone
And
else should have what? Like should have what? Well, that's the thing.
exactly.
Like how do you say that? How do you blame the government for the behavior that we're causing? We're doing it. They're not doing it.
Yeah, like that's like and that's what I saw with like a lot of like if you go into like the real gutter comments of like the CBC Facebook pages and stuff like that. um the one of the big issues I saw was that there is a lot of people who think they know the like they know what's going
Oh,
on.
oh yeah,
They watched a YouTube video of from you know some dude who pasted together some Joe Rogan stuff, and he knows now. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
it's it just boggled my mind. Where again, going back to that curb that's 2 inches high, that if you just do it, put on the mask, step over that curb, get your needle. I bet you it could have been squashed, like months ago. But
yeah,
you've got these people who are, and it's same thing here, as I said with the old people. Like it's, they don't give a shit. They survived the war. They can survive this. I'm gonna
yeah.
go and wash publicly, and then everybody gets the virus. But um, it to me, like it just seems that there's a lot of ignorance and a lot of pushback for you know whatever measures they're being put in place. But I think this is a something that has been deeply rooted, going back even before, where people have sort of a like there's a general ignorance or conspiracy theories that the pandemic just really brought to the surface, where you know these people have been in our society for a long time, but it's the same characters coming up, and it's spreading now because you can get a TikTok or you can get a YouTube channel, and
Yep.
now they're kind of congregating all together, and it's that cult of personality kind of thing where everybody gets together, and it's just stupid.
Well, I think what happens is the lowest denominator will always affect the greatest number of people.
Yeah,
And if you can have the most outrageous bullshit coming out and be able to sell it, if I
yeah,
can sell you on an idea, I just have to sell you, and then you're going to sell three of your buddies, and it's just going to spread like that. Um, the fact that we could have done this so much better. I mean,
yeah,
we the numbers are climbing because people are defying it, but I don't think that like in Korea, it was
yeah,
happening in bathhouses where people are
yeah,
clearly close together. Okay,
yeah.
this is not spreading going to Walmart to pick up something. This is
No,
not spreading by getting a haircut. This is not spread. It's by close contact. And for us to have these kind of numbers, the contact has to be close and prolonged. It's not happening
yep,
because you passed by me in a Starbucks line. It's not
no,
happening because we were at the gym at the same time on
no.
separate machines that are 8 feet apart now, I believe. And we're wiping those down and we're all wearing masks while we're working out. It's not happening there, but they shut them down. Why is it that in Korea, you guys figured this out early enough that
Yeah,
you're not just spitballing ideas, say, well, shit, we'll shut this down and shut this down and shut this down.
no.
You know how many businesses are screwed right now? Like, there
I
are families that are starving because of this shit.
Yeah, I could not believe yeah, like I mean they closed certain places down. The schools were closed for a little while too, but um, like I'm just getting a message saying yeah, it was a PC room, you know, things like that, where yeah, you're sitting shoulder to shoulder for long periods of time. the stores, like, 'cause the essential thing really blew my mind. Like, when I came home, I remember telling my wife, I was like, well, make me a list of stuff that you want. We can go and get it and I'll pick it up. And then, I, I'm just like, like, cause I'm not a big guy, but I'm not also Asian size. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, like I'm going to stock up on some shit. And they're like, no, you can't get a t-shirt. I was like,
Nope.
so what can I get? And they're like socks and underwear, a parka.
Yeah.
What's the difference between that and a t-shirt? They're like, no, it's not essential. And
It doesn't make any sense.
I
It
was
doesn't
just
make
like,
any sense.
so I was just like flabbergasted. And, one of these things was like, again, like 51 million people here. We're in close contact. None of the stores shut down. Nothing. The
Yep.
Seoul subway, Busan subway, like millions of people passing by. Nothing shut down like that. And here I am in Manitoba where it's like, yeah, you can go to the Walmart, but yeah, you can only get, groceries and
Yeah.
your gitch, and that's it.
And over Christmas that's happened. Over
Yeah.
Christmas. Like,
And and the other thing too, like I was telling my wife this, like I could not figure out the curbside pickup. Um, like that boggled my mind because I said, like, I said, why wouldn't they just deliver it? Like they got people out of work, and couldn't they just call it in, whatever you want, they'll just drop it off on your doorstep? And she's like, you know, and I said,
because
so
we're
I've got
lazy.
to like, yeah. And so my wife's like, well, wouldn't the contact be the same if you drove to the parking lot and the dude came to your car? And
Yep.
I was like, well, yeah, kinda. And because like here, that was the other thing. I think one of the saving graces is there's a huge delivery culture.
Yep.
So basically, whatever I want to get from Gitch to fried chicken,
Mm-hmm.
I can order from my phone, and like the chicken will come within minutes. The products will come. They have a what's called rocket delivery. It'll be here 1 to 2 days, and there's no contact. It's all GPS. So
Mm-hmm.
the guy, like my wife is crazy on this. Like she will track the chicken guy and be like, okay, why the hell did he make a turn there? Like like he should be coming straight down this road. And
Yeah.
but there's no contact. Like they'll just knock on your door and then drop off the packages. And um, it's a double-edged sword. These poor delivery guys were just basically run into the ground over the last like year and a half, a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it never really slowed the purchasing. Like we were never limited on what we could or could not get, and I could not figure that out coming back. Like you know
I think
the
that I
yeah.
think that if we would have again taken that next step
Mm.
and right, deliver everything. It's not that hard. It's a small town. You could have delivered anything that you were selling, but the fact they shut those businesses down, or
Exactly.
it didn't make any sense. Like if I could get pizza delivered to my house,
Yeah.
why can't I get underwear delivered to my house? Why can't I get anything? Anything? We have delivery drivers that are, dude. I've seen people with skip the dishes getting Slurpees to deliver.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you can get anything delivered, but I think that one we're short on ideas.
Yeah.
We're lazy as a
Yeah.
culture here,
Mhm.
and we didn't try to get together to figure out a reasonable solution. What's the
Yeah.
solution to this? Well, you guys didn't have the big spread because you fell in line, you wore the masks, you wash your hands. Did
Yeah.
anything like how did your life change in Korea with COVID, other than when you did your trip to Canada?
Not that much. Like, I mean, initially the beginning, due to my style of job, like I moved out of the university teaching into freelancing, which means that I go to businesses like corporations, and
Mm-hmm.
I teach the vice presidents and stuff. That moved to Zoom,
Mm-hmm.
uh, just because like for sheer numbers, if it, like, cause I work at one of the major oil companies in the country. If I get infected, or if I infect somebody there, like an entire shift has to get shut down to go into
Right.
quarantine. So they're just limiting the amount of access. But Other than that, like on a day-to-day basis, um, nothing. Like
It,
I can still go outside. I can still go to coffee shops, that sort of thing.
so there's nowhere you can't go.
No.
Well,
I
see,
think
and here,
maybe the gyms or something, but again, I said that's linked to the bathhouses.
mhm.
But it's like just this weekend, I was shocked as shit. I was doing a TV thing, and the parks were like packed with people. They're camping, social distancing. No, nothing,
No.
and everyone's just out enjoying the sun. Like it's really uh, outside of the messages. We're not like it's not really impacting life here to the extent that it is back home.
Well, and I think that that technology is available here. It has to be. There's no way that that is not available here. There's no way that somebody
Exactly.
couldn't have developed that by now. It exists. It exists. So why aren't we using it?
Yeah, and like that's what sort of shocked me because like just as I said, like right now, like we get like these. I'm not sure if you can see that.
Yeah, I can
There's
see
a
that.
message. That's what we get regularly. So it's a public safety alert, and in Korea, it tells me the area, the time, and the name of the place that there's the contact. So this one is a stadium PC room in this area, and then how many people were basically contacted. And if you were there, you're supposed to contact your, like the health office or something like that. So that's what. And then I've got an app that they developed because a lot of newcomers to Korea, they can't read Korean, so they developed an app that will translate that and then send it to you. So it will give you the English version.
So there's a fucking answer right there. There's an
Yeah,
answer. And if here's the thing, I would be willing to bet that if we were being tracked, which we're being tracked with our phones anyway. I mean,
yeah,
this thing
yeah,
we're tracked,
yeah,
but we don't want to know that we're being tracked. That's the
yeah,
fucked up part about Canadians. We don't want the government knowing where we are. I'm like, dude, you got an iPhone in your pocket. Trust me, they know. They
yeah,
know. Don't worry about it. If you can, but if this can be used for the greater good, where it's like, you know what, we're going to track your every move. One, there's
yeah,
going to be backlash. What you think people are going to toss their phones? Easily, the government could say, we're going to download this into every single phone right now.
yeah,
Bing, suddenly it's in your phone. Easy, done. And if people are getting tracked, absolutely wherever they were,
yeah.
people wouldn't be fucking around the way they are, or
Well,
maybe wouldn't have a problem. Who knows?
going back to that whole thing with like as I said, like people getting caught for adultery, like yeah, that sucks. But the other thing is that it makes it super simple for the government to find where the people went,
Yep.
who they were associated with, and everybody gets tested. So, like for example, like there was a couple clusters here in the city, uh, and the guy that ate at the restaurant goes home, so his whole family gets tested. And
Right.
as soon as they can like stop that, it stops the spread because then if he's infected, okay, mom's good, kid's good, grandma's good, okay, done. He
Yeah.
goes to quarantine, he gets that shit taken care of. That family goes into quarantine, it stops the spread right there. Like there, and that's how it's sort of working. And then everybody that was in that restaurant at that time also goes and gets tested so that there's no outlier that's like wandering around the city. And
Well, the problem is,
it's,
well,
yeah,
the thing is, here all we have, and like I said, it's if you're in a place for that's got it together, because let's look at my day yesterday. So plant
okay.
my garden. So I went to one greenhouse. It didn't have what I wanted. I went to another greenhouse. They have what I wanted. I had to go to Home Depot and grab something. And
Yeah,
I walked into the Tim Hortons to grab a coffee,
yeah,
which was because the drive through was a long line. But screw it, there's nobody in. I went in there. So I went into one, two, three, four places
yeah,
and didn't sign anything. There's no
yeah,
contact tracing for those four places. Unless I went somewhere, like I said, to the government office to get my fishing license, there's nothing. I could go into every store in town.
yeah,
There's nothing. It doesn't make any
yeah,
sense. Like we're the reason that we're spreading is because we're not being accountable for where we're going.
yeah.
So
And
I don't know what the
yeah,
answer is.
I don't know either, because like, to compare that, like my wife and I were doing some running around. So how it works here is like we walked up to the Daiso, which is like the dollar shop. When you walk in, they've got a machine that checks your temperature and sprays your hand with hand sanitizer. If
Yeah.
you're over, it will send off an alarm. For most of those kinds of businesses, you don't have to check in because technically you're not sitting down doing anything.
Right.
So we go through and get our stuff. Now, most of these businesses now have gone to the kiosk, contactless. You just check out
Mhm.
using the computer. We got groceries, same thing, cashless grocery system. So you're not actually handing anything to the cashier. She's shielded.
Yeah.
We went and picked up some coffee. Most coffee shops, because they're one of the main points of contact with the COVID, you do that little scan thing, but you also check your temperature, get our coffees, we're out the door, and everything is sort of checked. If you go into the bigger centers, they'll have that like predator style heat sensor thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but there's no limit on how many people can go in, and there's no any like, you can buy this but you can't buy that, nothing like that. And everybody wears a mask outside. Everybody wears a mask. Like, as I said, like I've seen people get into their cars and they're driving with their mask on.
And that's fine. But I
Yeah.
think what happened
As a,
was we were so slack on it
yeah.
that anytime they put in a rule, people push back way harder, and it was just wait. Like here, you've got a dude at the door counting,
Yeah.
and with a spray bottle of hand sanitizer. Great.
Yeah.
Here's I saw a TikTok once. It's the funniest damn thing I'd seen in a while. Did you go to Tim's when you were here? Did you stop at Tim
Yeah.
Hortons to grab coffee? Okay.
Yes, it did.
Did they hand you your shit on a tray?
Yeah,
They
like with
have
like
that
a
little
hockey stick or something, or I don't know,
yeah.
like it was a tray or something.
So they hand you your shit on this tray. They had this guy who did a TikTok where he had like a Tupperware container and he handed
Yeah.
him his money on the tray. He's like, "This is how much fucking sense this makes." He goes, "You're handing me my
Oh my
coffee
god.
on this tray that you've been handling all day,
Yeah.
and you're taking my dirty money from my hand." Like
It,
there's just
well, like that was sort of the thing that like stuff like that really it like for me, like it just didn't make sense, because I remembered like seeing the hockey stick for the tap,
yeah.
and I was just like, I remember calling my wife. I'm like, this is just the weirdest shit. And she's like,
I don't know.
like
For
and she's
some
like, why?
for a country that's so scared of this thing, and we're doing all these dumb things to try and protect ourselves, we're not doing the things that we could be doing. Like this app that I showed you,
Yeah.
there's no reason why they couldn't link that app into the same technology you guys have in Korea,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it just tracks. Boom, 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 tracks. It has never gone off. Ever, 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 ever. You're telling me that I have not passed by anybody that had COVID? That's horseshit. If we were having 500 cases a day, trust me, I'd
Somebody.
walk by somebody.
Well, it really boggles my mind, because, and I think it's just like, again, going back to like, there's a lot of differences I've noticed with living sort of in two worlds, and I think like I was hoping that, as you said, like with Canada's adoption of technology, I was. I always joked with my brother, because he'd always pull this like, well, I live in the real world. I'm not strapped to my phone. And I said, and I told him, I said, Chuck, this is 2021 now. Um,
Yeah.
it's not 1996. So,
Yeah.
and like, it's sort of this thing of, I love train travel and stuff like that. And I've often said, like we need better transportation in Canada. And
Yeah.
I'm not bagging on Canada, but there's just generally some improvement that I need to make. And one of the things I really get caught on is when I travel home. And the last time we saw Dad, we surprised him for his 70th birthday. I could not get out of Winnipeg for like an affordable. Like I know that there's a shuttle,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I was trying to do it on like the down low. So I thought,
Hmm.
okay, well, like maybe we get a bus. And so
Hmm.
when I called some friends, they're like, no, like Greyhound bus has gone bankrupt, I think, at that time.
Yeah. They're done.
And so I was like, okay, well, um, is there another company? They're like, well, there's a shuttle, but it's like, I think it was like $150 to Brandon or something. And I
Yep.
was like, you got to be shitting me. And so like, oh my, what are my options? They said, well, you could rent a car.
That's not any
And,
cheaper.
and yeah. And then you also have to bring the car back to the airport.
Yeah.
They didn't have that feature where I could just drop it off at like a, budget
Enterprise
rent
here.
enterprise. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when like there was the same thing, like when I did my master's in Nova Scotia, Halifax, bigger center, I thought for sure they got to have something. I get in, the lady's like, I need a bus ticket to Antigonish, where my university was. They're like, oh, she's like, okay, so 8 o'clock. And I'm like, look at my watch, I'm like, oh, it's 7:30. Yeah, okay. She's like, okay, come back tomorrow morning. I'm like, no, I need it like now.
Now.
My class starts tomorrow. She's like, oh, well, you know, that the last bus just left. And um, in Korea, like granted, again, 51 million people, place the size of Manitoba. It's there's going to be more usage, but when I fly in pre-COVID, you don't even break pace. Like you get into Incheon, which is not in Seoul. You've got a bullet train into Seoul. You jump in through my phone. I'm booking my ticket for the bullet train, 300 kilometers an hour across the country. I can then get on a bus right to my house. And, but there was a lot of pushback. I said, well, why don't we get a better system? Wow, everyone has a car. Everyone has a truck. I don't want to sit on a, fucking bus. I'm like, well,
When you have that many people in a small area like you guys have, not that many people probably own cars because you don't really need one.
no, this is Hyundai. This is Hyundai country. We all have like the problem is that when you have that many people, like during the holidays, we have two major holidays.
Yeah.
It is a clusterfuck, like like getting out of Seoul. Because think about it, all of your like my Chevy,
Yeah.
which I use quotations there,
Okay.
was made 4 kilometers down the road.
Okay.
Like when I bought my car new,
Yeah.
um, they're like, okay, yeah, and I'm like, okay, where is it? Like, you got my money. They're like, oh, it still has to be made. And I was like,
Oh.
what? They're like, yeah, like you come back in 2 weeks. And so literally when I got the car, it had 4 kilometers on it because literally like they made it and then drove it to the dealership.
Wow.
And Hyundai, like the main Hyundai car center is down the road here. So basically they build all the cars, they put them on ships, ship them out because we're a port city.
Yeah.
And if you work there, you have to have a fucking car. So
Really.
parking and driving, like Fridays at 5, I can look out my window and there's just a traffic jam of people. And they've done everything they could because, like each of these companies have big buses that they, transport the people. But during the holidays, yeah, everybody takes their car. Going to my parents' place will take it takes about an hour and a half to get to the in-laws. It'll take
Yeah.
3 hours, 4 hours, depending on what time we leave, just because it's just bumper to bumper. But
Really.
to alleviate that, yeah, they've got like planes, trains, and automobiles. Like if you need to get to Seoul, you can fly there, or you can take the bullet train, or you can take the slow train, or you can take the bus. And now they
Yeah.
even have a gold class bus, which is insane, but it's nice. Like it's basically a first class airplane seat in a
Yeah.
bus.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you check the
And
front. Yeah,
we have nothing. We have planes that don't go everywhere. We
yeah,
have one highway in this country. One highway.
yeah.
That's it. One
Well,
highway and no trains. We have a train that goes to Churchill.
funny story about that. I was just doing a class. One of my classes I have most days. I work at this. I think they build like auto parts and stuff like that for like BMWs and stuff. And I
Yeah.
basically, these guys are the ones that deal with a lot of the international clients. So we basically go through a lot of stuff to get them better at communicating. And we were talking about Canada because the guy lived in, I think, Toronto for a while. But anyway, so we were looking at Google Maps and he's like, I have a question. He's like, why is it the number one? And I was like, well, I said,
It's
if you look at it, it goes right across. It's like the one highway that goes coast to coast. He's like, huh, that's, and he's like, why wouldn't they build like other, I'm like, well, Canada's a big place. I didn't really
yeah,
have the answer for him, but he was just like, huh. But,
or a
you know,
bullet train that goes the entire Trans Canada Highway.
well,
Have a
think
train that
about,
goes across.
if you think about this, because like when I put that across, like I love the bullet train here in Korea. Like, um, here, like I go to Seoul regularly pre-COVID, and I've got points, so I use like what they call the tukshil, which is the special car.
Yeah,
And okay, here's the thing: it's $75 to go to Seoul, so right across the country. Probably about 190 minutes. I think that's the
yeah,
uh, and I get free water and snacks while I'm on there. I can charge my phone. There's free Wi-Fi. Um, and if I go into like the regular class, so you don't get the snacks or anything. But I usually, because you get more leg room in the they call it the first class, but it's like, but I mean, think about that: $75 to go all the way across the country. So it's like one of the longest routes.
yeah,
Um, that's one of the key features, and I think that's just because of the frequency they can keep the costs low. But
yeah,
um, stuff like that where you don't even think about it. Like when I tried to book, I took when we came back last time, I took the shuttle from Vancouver to Whistler,
yeah,
and it cost us, I think it was like $100, $125, like one
yeah,
way. And my
yeah.
wife just shit herself. She's like, that's is that for both of us? I'm like, no, that's yeah.
It's
And
expensive.
she was just like, blown my like, and also here, like the other thing with the budget airlines, like they're suffering because of the COVID. But even pre-COVID, Korea and Japan have like a long running like um, really bad history. Like basically pre World War II, Japan annexed Korea. Like they just like came across and said, "This is Japan. Fuck you
Oh,
guys."
jeez.
And
Yeah,
like so like at the end of World War II, like, and this is sort of the history, like MacArthur and everybody else came in and sort of was like, okay, Japan, fuck off. And I don't
yeah,
know the reasoning, but they just drew a line and said, okay, that's North Korea, that's South Korea. But Korea really hates Japan, which is good for me because was it 2019? I went to Tokyo for $35, and that was like the that was round trip, and that was also the priority seating.
wow.
So
I mean,
like,
we have budget airlines. We don't have them here, but I can pre-COVID. I like how we use pre-COVID for the way things used to be. But
the old
I can,
days.
yeah, but I can go to Minot, which
Yeah,
is about half an hour further drive than going to Winnipeg. Okay,
yeah,
I can get on a plane in Minot and fly to Vegas for $60.
yeah, all the way across the country. Yeah,
Yeah, and but not here. Here we don't do that in Canada. You're like I go to Toronto for stuff with Wall every once in a while, and
yeah,
it's not cheap, and we have money, but is it because we have? It's not that we have less people flying because the planes are all full. They could
yeah,
be charging less. We produce oil, we produce gas, we produce all these things that the plane needs, but we produce the planes. Bombardier,
yeah.
we build the
Bombardier.
damn things. We have no reason not to have cheap flights, but for some reason it's very expensive to do that, and I think that we we make that expensive, we make everything else expensive. So I believe that we think that should they start spending money on high tech scanners and this and everything else, we're gonna be pissed. We're like, oh, my taxes are gonna go up because of this shit.
Yeah,
Yeah, your taxes
and
are also going up because everybody's on unemployment right now. How about that?
exactly. Yeah. Well, like that's the one thing. Like, everybody asks. Like, we were planning to come back to Canada, and like after Dad died and everything, it put a lot of stuff into perspective. And one of the things was I realized that like um, a lot of my friends were like sort of, I wouldn't say that they were looking down on like Korea and whatnot, but it was sort of this like, oh, well, we have it so good here in Canada, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, do we? Like, because
We
when I explained, it's it's not matching up. And again, I'm not trying to shit on my home country.
No,
I love Canada, but it was just these deficiencies where, again, like going back to that curbside pickup, I was saying, to my brother, I'm like, why the fuck do I have to go all the way to Canadian Tire and wait for some kid to run out to the parking lot, when they could just as easily send him to my doorstep. And, you know,
we could
I
have done
chose,
it. We could have
yeah,
done this a lot differently, and we could have done it. We could learn a lot from what's happening out where you are. Like in Korea,
yeah,
51 million people, an area the size of Manitoba, and you guys managed to manage this. This hasn't
yeah,
been this has not been managed. They open things, close things, and that is not this. That is not what's saving anything. Opening shit and
no,
closing shit is not doing it. Keeping people away from their parents or their loved ones or their friends is not helping. It's
no,
not helping anything. Knowing where everybody is would help, but we
yep,
don't. And the whole idea of, okay, you can't be with your, like the camping season.
yeah,
Well, you can't go from one campground to one campsite to another. Well, bullshit. You think people are gonna, instead of sitting around the campfire with each other, they're gonna be sneaking in behind their campers and drinking with each other.
yeah,
That's not, it's not the case. Do it safely. Wear your masks
yep,
and get on with life until the time comes when we don't have to. But right now we do. Get your head out of your ass and do what you got to do. Like we had another probably 200 today. Like we had 500,
Jesus.
500, 500, 600 in Manitoba daily going on. And they think that the solution to this is shutting down schools, shutting down
Ah,
personal services, and shutting down gyms. Yet everything else is steady as she goes. If I were to pull into Home Depot right now, well, it's closed now, but you pull in there, it's full. You pull into any store, it's full. Now, I know that the numbers are supposed to be down, but if they're only allowing so many people in the store and there isn't much of a lineup, yet the parking lot's full, I don't think anybody's counting.
yeah, it's, I like, I am at a loss, because I'm just checking the numbers right now. And I think thanks to probably the steady increase of vaccinations and whatnot, we've got, for total cases across the entire country, um, we've got 485 cases
In the entire
uh,
country.
in the entire country. And you look at a densely populated place like Seoul, they've only got 159 cases. Now, um, if you've ever seen any of my pictures, like, this is
Yeah.
not spaced out, wonderful green grass. You are like shoulder to shoulder. Um, like Korea is always like, there's this phrase in Korean, they say bali bali, which means fast,
Mhm.
fast. Everybody, it's going nonstop. Like it never sleeps. The city breathes.
Mhm.
And for it to only have 159 cases a day, my city right now has only got 10. And I was expecting more because, like, as I said, when we were filming the TV thing, at night people go to this park and they rent camping gear, and it's just packed with people eating and drinking. Again, like, masks are coming off to eating, and somehow, like, it's not spreading. And yeah, like, they're monitoring the situation, but it's still like you're looking at 500 to 1,000 people in a public park just chilling out. And so my question then is, if you can't go camping in Canada,
What's there
you
to do?
know, yeah, like, how the fuck is this moving on? Like,
I don't think this is going to be over anytime soon. And I think that,
no,
like I
no,
said, it went from a let's do what we have to do to prevent the spread to now let's just get everybody vaccinated because people aren't going to listen. And even then, they're digging their heels in. So I don't know. I wish that our premier, who he's, I hope he enjoys retirement because he's not going to make it past this term
no,
that he's in.
no.
And I think that he should be able to take a page out of places like Korea. Canada should be able to take a page out of these countries that have managed to figure it out. And the
Hmm,
problem, what I get from people is they say, "Well, they're just not reporting their cases."
no,
Yeah, they are. They sure as hell are.
no,
You can't help but report your case because you're getting tracked. This bullshit thing that the government put out, this COVID-19 app, could have easily been tied into exactly what you have back in Korea and been extremely effective because people would have been a lot more careful, or
yeah,
you'd catch it quicker. Like you'd figure out who has it. You wouldn't be sitting at home for a week and a half, not sick, but you have
yeah,
COVID. Now you've given it to everybody you've been around. It's pretty much, and you said it's real time, right?
Yeah, it's real time. Like everything is tracked. It's and I think like that's like I think what where it is to like going back to the individual and the taxes and whatnot, where I see a lot of the differences with this real time stuff is nobody gives a shit about what data is being tracked. Like
No,
there's no like, oh my God, like they're tracking. Well, Bill, you're no one gives a shit about where you go on the weekend. You work at the fucking gas station. Like the government does not give a shit about you. Um, just let the shit work, because that sort of system then is allowing us to catch it. And then the other thing I noticed is just the availability of that real time data and the amount of people that are connected. That's the biggest thing. There is, as I said before, like all public transit here has Wi-Fi.
yeah,
So when you get on, and that's sort of the push with this app, the Cacao app, the messaging system. So even if you don't have data, even if your phone is not on a plan or if you can't afford it,
yeah.
if you can get on a bus, if you can get on a train, you can use the messaging app and you can communicate. And that's how 99% of the country runs through that particular app. They even started putting in like downtown Ulsan here, the shopping area, the whole street is Wi-Fi connected. It's free public Wi-Fi.
Nice.
So when you do your shopping, you're connected. So I think like that level of connectivity, public buildings, everything is all connected, all free Wi-Fi. You're always got a signal. You're always being updated on that situation, and I guess you're always being tracked as well. So that combination is allowing that information to get to the people who need it, and then they can formulate a plan of action.
Jeez. Well, and that'd be tough to do. Like we have a lot of very small towns here where internet is shitty to begin with
Yeah,
because we're not that connected. So if you had a town like Glenboro or any of these small towns where they might have Wi-Fi there, but um, that connectivity is hard because we're so spread out. You could have
yeah,
that
exactly.
in towns that, but there's no reason why you couldn't have it in Brandon. No reason why you couldn't have it in Winnipeg, Dauphin, Portage, all these towns where they've got the ability to do it. The
Yeah,
government could easily say, "Yep, click on the Wi-Fi. You guys are all connected, and there you go."
yeah,
This up and GPS doesn't really take anything. GPS just runs on
no,
GPS. Like
yeah,
that's something that's available to anybody that has a signal, whether you're on a plan or not. Your GPS, you can always pull a map up. That always
yeah,
works.
yeah,
Um, but no, I think that laziness, maybe being cheap,
yeah.
um, just relying on us to police ourselves didn't work.
No, no. And yeah, like that's the big thing too, because as much as I want to give it to the goodness of people, they're always going to fall back onto their own selves. And like I'm a teacher, so like I've seen this with kids. If you allow the kids to police themselves, it is fucking chaos sometimes. You
Yeah,
turn your back and shit's just gonna go nuts. And again, like the way that people are acting, I would actually say that my students, like the little kids, they're not much better than the way that I see people acting in some cases. The anti-vaxxers, the anti-maskers. Why the fuck do you need a hug? Just listen and wear the mask. And that's I
you
just
know
can't
what?
understand it.
Have you ever heard of anybody being anti-penicillin?
Nope.
No, you know why? Because fuck, if you get an infection, you need the penicillin. You're gonna take the penicillin because it's going
Yeah.
to eliminate a problem that you've got. Vaccine is just like taking it before the problem happens. Just
Yeah.
take it. Or you're right. If we would have just fallen in line and done what we had to do, we wouldn't be in this mess that we're in right now. And it's not going to get any better because now it's summer and everybody's itching. They got cabin fever. We got to go
Yeah.
to the lake. We got to go and see our neighbors at the lake. Well, no, you don't have to do that shit. Or you could have if we didn't spend the last 17 months fucking the dog.
Well, it's one of these things I've noticed where like I've been like I'm still connected to like a lot of the communities back home, and I see this thing of like you mentioned the term like fall in line, and I've seen so many of those stupid memes showing like the Holocaust victims, and it's like this is what happens when you fall in line. And again, it's like, look, man, you're not rebelling against a tyrannical government. You are getting a vaccine to help your fellow man and everybody else get back to normal. We
Hmm.
did this in schools back in the day. Everybody got their booster shots, you know,
Yep.
and none of this should happen. Now people are like, "Oh, it's not tested." Look, man, like it came out fast, but that's how it had to come out. They're not just going to be like, okay, put something together, 2 parts Clorox and 1 part baking soda, that'll
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
And people literally assume that that's the thought process. But you have a global community of scientists grinding gears to get this stuff out. They're not going to release a product that globally like this that is unsafe. Sure, there are some clotting issues. But you know what? I just saw a statistic the other day. The pill, like that women go
Yep.
on, has a higher percentage of like blood clotting or side effects than a lot of the scary vaccines.
Oh, so does flying, and so does smoking. Those have a
Yeah,
higher percentage of clotting effects. There's a lot of things that are worse. And when you talk about it coming out fast, tell you what, and I said this before, I'll listen to every doctor on the planet because nobody seems to be arguing this. I had uh, what the hell is he called? He puts you to sleep in the hospital. He's a
oh, the
anesthesi-
anesthesiologist.
anesthesiologist. He was in my chair, and he said, "You got to remember this, Quentin." He goes, in the history of vaccines, we've never had a 95% success rate. This one is
Yeah,
95%. He goes, the technology is out there now to do that. Even the flu vaccine is like, what, 60 at best?
yeah,
Any of these vaccines, they've never had this much success because everybody got together to get it done.
yeah,
And it works. He goes, and what, 5%? Maybe not. Yeah, maybe there's a 5% chance you're not going to get it. I'll take that chance. Is there a 99% survival rate of COVID? Yeah, but it depends on who gets it. I
yeah,
mean, you can get it really bad, and you're going to get it, yeah, and you'll get it really bad. You can survive this. You could go through it and not have a symptom. That's fine. But the 50 people you were near, one of those people might get it so bad that they die,
mhm,
and we have no way of tracking it back to you. That's the problem.
yeah.
If I
Well,
went to Tim's or whatever, and some guy, and I had no ill effects from COVID, and I happened to
mhm,
be standing in line with this guy, and he got it, and he died. There's no way that they would ever be able to track it back to me. That's the
yeah.
problem we've got.
And like a lot of the pushback, I sort of get a chuckle from this because like you mentioned the anesthesiologist. Like this is a guy who studies his entire life to figure out the exact amount of I guess gas or whatever to put you to sleep so that you wake up again. And you
Yeah.
got people refuting the scientists, like people who they read one book a year, barely got out of grade 12, and they're like, nah, I've seen the research, nah. And like, and I'm sitting there thinking, like, Jesus H Christ, like, what research did you see? Like, and like, uh, a lot of people will like, I Googled it, I saw the medical report. I'm like, okay, that's great. Did do you understand what was in the medical report, or did you just read it, cherry picked some sentences, and then say, oh yeah, well, like on page 22 it said that there's a high mortality rate, but nobody, like, again, this is a person who's never studied medical or virology or any of that kind of stuff, trying to state that what the people who have spent their lives studying this particular area, like they're like, these guys aren't saying, like, they're not surgeons, they're not pediatricians. The people who are working on this vaccine are the people who should be working on the vaccine. And you've got Millie from Glenborough saying that she knows more
Well,
because she saw a YouTube video.
that would be like me throwing a filter on an Instagram photo and then telling you something about photography.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know. Like, yeah, I do. I've dabbled in it, but you're an amazing photographer, and you've dedicated your life, and you've studied it, and you've picked the parts apart, and you've put them back together, and you've done things that I couldn't imagine could be done with a camera.
well, thank you.
And Yeah, I mean, your stuff's amazing, and it's embarrassing when I take a photo. I'm like, God damn it! I know somebody who could do this way better than I can. But I mean, but that'd be like me explaining photography to you. I say,
Yeah.
well, hell, that's Photoshop, clearly. No,
Yeah.
I was standing there. I know how to take a photo. I took the photo. Here it is.
Yeah.
It's not. There was a time. There was a time when the internet was new, and you remember this because we're close to the
Yeah.
same age. When the internet
Yeah.
was new, and when you read an article on the internet, it was probably accurate back then
Yeah.
because it was sourced and it was right and it was. And there was a well, I saw on the internet. Oh, really? Holy shit! Really? That is interesting. But now everybody's an expert, and everybody's
Yeah.
got their heads up their asses, and they're still writing articles.
Well, here's the thing, and that's a good point that you brought up. Like when I first started into university, you could not use a internet source in a actual essay. Like you couldn't
No.
use it as a citation. You could reference it in the form of what was called like I think it was like internet or personal communications, but it was not treated as factual information unless it came from like a peer-reviewed journal. And now everything has changed. I can cite that, but it's still in the academic world, you're still looking for the actual peer reviewed stuff. But yet, most people think that if you write an article like, what's that crackpot, like Alex Jones or something,
Right.
like if they see it in print, oh yeah, oh my God, it's got to be true. And it's like, check the sources. Who is this guy?
Yeah.
And I call it edutainment is basically it.
Yeah.
Like a lot of what people are consuming right now is education in the form or like from entertainers or entertainment. Like, who is it? That actress, what's her name? The one who bleaches her nether regions, or
That's a
I don't
long
know.
list, man. These days.
Anyway, so one of those like Gwyneth Paltrow, yeah, the Goop
Okay.
lady.
Yeah.
Like what are her qualifications to be a like a health guru?
None.
None.
None. You
Um,
don't have. Yeah.
you look at the pundits on TV, like back in the day, like Rush Limbaugh and all these guys. What were their qualifications? Like, where are they getting this information from? And this is the problem that people see Fox News and they treat it as the God's honest truth. When the government comes, when the scientists say like this is real, this is a pandemic, this is what we have to do, they're like, nah, man. I saw on like Rebel Media that they said this is bullshit. Like masks. You know,
Hey, I was going to ask this. Did they ever shut down travel in and out of Korea?
yeah, they did.
Okay.
It's still shut down for the most part. Anyway.
Okay. See, that's a pandemic. Here's the problem. If this was a pandemic, if this was treated as a pandemic, they're still using the word pandemic in Canada. Yet you can fly in and out of Canada. That happens. If it was a true pandemic, there wouldn't be a single flight in or out of this country. Why they just call it an outbreak then? Call it an uncontrolled outbreak, but they're not
Yep.
treating it as a pandemic. So if you're gonna make people lose their livelihoods
Yeah.
and not see their families, call it a pandemic, shut it down.
I am blown away by that because like I've got friends stuck in like Singapore because
Yep.
he was living in Malaysia, and both countries said nope, we're locking it down,
Yep.
no in or out, and he's just like um, I got to get home. They're like nope, not till we
Nope.
open it up again. He has been there for over a year
No.
because every time like they're like okay, we're gonna open it up again, boom, nope, we're locking it down. There's been an outbreak. And I think he's managed to find a like he's got into a master's program for like fucking basket weaving or something,
Yeah.
which allows him to get out.
Yeah.
But the whole reason why I think that they should lock it down is even here in Korea, uh, due to my photography, I got a lot of people that like I'm in the tourism kind of area, and you still get people who are like, why can't I come? Because BTS, I'm not sure if you've heard of those
Yeah. I've heard
guys.
of them.
There's the K-pop thing is huge. So you got a lot of
Yeah.
people wanting to come to Korea. And, I'm sitting there like, no, 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 no. You do not need to come here on a vacation Well, I think it's unfair. No, it's unfair to us
Yeah,
if you're coming in and infecting us. So again, like when I went home for the funeral, I had to go to immigration and specifically get permission.
really,
Um, yeah, so like, and it was funny because my wife's like, that's stupid. You're a permanent resident. I'm like, no, I've got to get permission. She's like, okay. So we went. I remember on the Friday, and yeah, like we sat down, we paid $25, and I got my reentry permit. Pre-COVID, I had what was called a multiple reentry. Like you can just go in and out, no
yeah,
problems. Once COVID hit, they cut that, and yeah, like I just basically told the lady, look, there's been a death in the family. I've got to go to Canada, and then they stamped that in my passport. If I
really,
didn't, and I just left, my visa would be canceled, and I would be deported.
really. Well,
Yeah.
but again, there's checks and balances. That's the difference. You
Yep.
better have a damn good reason for doing what you're doing. Right now, people are just like, I don't think I can go to Saskatchewan right now.
Oh Jesus.
Yeah, it's provincial wide. I know Ontario. No, like there are people that have cottages just on the other side of the Ontario border.
Yeah,
They can't go to their cottages. It's
I heard about
it's
that. Yeah.
yeah, it's not working. I mean,
Well,
I think that, and yourself as a photographer, if you were to, if something came up that was super interesting in BC right now, you'd
yep.
have to quarantine there for a couple of weeks. It within the
Yeah,
country,
that's
province to province.
crazy. Like, and that blows me away because like this is one of the things I like. Again, like Korea's small. What is the difference between BC and Manitoba, or even Saskatchewan or Manitoba? Like, what? Why is there a quarantine on the like that invisible line? Like, I don't
I
get
don't
it.
know. I know BC. I mean, they got those mountains that block your view, so you can't really see for 20 miles away. But I don't
Yeah,
know what the difference is between Manitoba. There's no difference. We're all. I have a feeling we're not looking at it like Korea did. It's the
yeah,
country,
yeah,
not zones, not here, not like it's. There's BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, and they're invisible lines. Like COVID can't cross that line.
yeah,
It's a backwards mentality. It's well, you're from your town, you stay over there. Well, fuck, we all live together. Like we're all
yeah,
in the same country. If we all tied together and we all did the right thing, we wouldn't be having these issues. If you took these people that are protesting and having these anti-mask rallies, arrest them. They give out
yes.
warnings, warnings,
No,
warnings, warnings.
don't do it. Tap on the wrist. Yeah,
Don't you do it. They give warnings and then they don't do shit. And then they'll charge the person who organized it. Well, tell you what, how about all these assholes that are in that parking lot get a van or bus or train, whatever, arrest them all because they're clearly a problem, and maybe that'll teach them a lesson. You know, if
it,
I did it, here's the funny thing. I have like this is my office, but my podcast studio is going into. I actually have a barber shop that I built in the back room of
mhm.
my garage. I can't legally do a haircut.
Jesus.
Across the alley from me, I shit you not, the neighbors behind me, the wife does massage therapy
Yeah.
from her home. That's allowed.
Uh,
It it's fucked up. That's allowed, but I can, if you have a home based business that's allowed to be open, and that as long as that business is allowed to run, you're allowed to run. I could be doing a podcast in that barbershop right now, 6 feet apart with somebody, legal, but not a haircut.
Okay. Okay, Um. Ooh.
Trying
Okay.
to wrap
So
your brain around that.
massage therapy
Hmm.
um, involves touching a human person in close contact,
Kind of
right?
like a bathhouse, but not like that. But yes.
Yes. And now, as a barber,
Hmm.
typically you're going to be wearing a mask,
Hmm.
and your tools and bench are sanitized.
Hmm.
Um, it, what's the difference?
I fucked if I know. Ask Palliser. Apparently, and
Yeah.
Dr. Rusin, they seem to think there's a major difference between these two. So you've shut down multiple shops. Lots of these places are going to let the leases just go.
Yeah.
One of our bigger suppliers in Manitoba for equipment,
Yeah.
um, they have sold more single chairs and single sinks in the last year than in the previous 25 years combined. So
Christ.
you're going to see a lot more home salons and private studios where we don't want strangers in our chair. You can come. You're more than welcome to come if I know you. But that's it.
Yeah.
You're going to see what was big in the 80s. I bet you, I know that I went to a home salon when I was a kid.
Yeah.
My aunt had one in her basement. And you're going to see people saying, fuck it, I'm not going to be renting commercial space. I'm just going to do my trade wherever I live and have a space there and only have people that I trust there. I think that's going to be the big shift.
But it's amazing in the sense that, like, you know, just pointing out the fact that, like, the massage therapy versus um you know, salons and whatnot. I'm just shaking my head at this because, you know, like, man, I don't have too much on top anymore, but
No.
I don't see a lot of contact. Like, when I do get, like, I'm a actually, I was inspired by you. I got my wall clippers here, and
Yeah.
I'm in the bathroom, you know,
Yeah.
and but when I come home to Canada, because key point that you might find this interesting, there are no barbershops here.
Really?
Like, there are now, but I would say that they're male salons. Like, they're not.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, so most of my students, like the dudes, like, they will go to a salon and get their hair done
Yeah.
by, like, a salon, like a hairdresser.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I came home, it was really funny, because whenever I come home pre-COVID,
Yeah.
I would try and source out, like, a good barber, because I want
Yeah.
the hot towels, I want the straight edge razor,
Yeah.
and, like, my wife was just, she couldn't believe it. She's like, "What's the difference?" And I said, like, when we were in Vancouver, there's a place I used to go to, on the main road by my house. Old guy, great shop,
Yeah.
classic barber. And she's like,
Yeah.
"I have never seen this before." She's like, "This is like out of a movie, with the barber chair and the straight razor."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Well, yeah, but this is, like I said, like, when you have a buzz cut, this is what you need. I don't need
Yeah.
essential oils and like $85 for them to
No.
go zzz, zzz. You know,
No.
I want, you know." And so anyway, there's not a lot of that going on, but I just can't see the difference. Like, I think there's less contact in a barbershop, and everything's,
Apparently,
like, a little bit more sterilized.
apparently it's science. They're saying don't argue the science behind it, but they're basing everything on science, and the science doesn't add up. When you can go to acupuncture, you can go to chiropractor, and again, if those are medical things, it's fine. But because it's essential, if you're important enough, you can have your job. If you're
Yeah,
not at a certain level, you don't need to work. Well,
yeah.
I'll tell you
If you
what,
pay
although barber,
taxes.
well, here's the thing, and I mentioned this. You probably listened to the last one I
Yeah,
did, where I said there's a common thread in gyms and personal services, and that we only collect GST,
Jesus.
not PST. So the province doesn't get a taste. They don't care for open or close because they don't get anything either way. Any service under $50 is
Yeah.
just GST.
Just
So they
GST.
don't care if we're open or not. Isn't that fucked
Oh
up?
God. Well, it shows a lot of, like, because I think, like, that's probably where the science is coming from, is that they're just stepping back saying, well, it's only $30, so, you know, who the fuck gives a shit? We'll just close that off, and, you know,
Well, I'll tell
that's
you what,
point.
the families that rely on those $30 haircuts are the ones that they're affecting. And
Yeah,
I think that when you cheapen someone's livelihood, and I'll tell you what, barbering was the first registered trade ever.
yeah.
It was the first
Well,
recognized trade. So it's been around a long time. It's fairly important. But I think that when you cut that off, and the only things they closed this time around were gyms and personal services, nothing else.
Jesus. Yeah, and, like, and to me, like, I just, the wheel falls off the cart there. Like, you know, especially because, you know, I see the Canadian news, and, you know, everybody's got, like, the long hair and stuff like that. It's become, and I sit back and I wonder, like, you know, where, like, if I can go out, yeah, and get a massage or acupuncture,
Mhm.
have needles jabbed in me, you know, there, what is the thing? And I know that they're probably saying, well, you know, you don't need to get your hair done, but you do. It's like, I mean, it's a good point. Like, when I came home for the funeral, uh, my mom, you know, she loved to get her hair done. So
Mhm.
she wanted to get her hair done for the funeral. She wanted to
Yeah.
look good. She couldn't. The
Yeah.
whole time I was there, you know, her hair is growing out. So, you know, and
Yeah.
The one thing I wanted was for her to actually just go and feel normal again.
Yeah.
And I think when it opened up briefly a few months ago, she went to there's that salon next to Forbidden Flavors, kind of in the beer
Yep.
store.
Yeah. Yeah. I know which one you're talking about. What
Art,
the hell are they called? I know what
art, art,
artistry.
artistry, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I I messaged them and got my mom in there, but my mom was like so happy, and I could
Yeah.
see the amount of impact, even just that contact. And I know for your profession, people in your chair being able to, just have a conversation, get their hair done by a professional rather than over the toilet like I am.
Yeah.
Um, People need that. And I think that if they would step back and reevaluate these services, because again, like massage therapy, yeah, I'm a Reagan at heart, but I mean, in the same sense as that, this is also essential. Like this is part of your life. If you work in a service industry or something, you need to be clean and healthy. You're not going to wear like a do rag or a hairnet. You know,
Well, and it's one of those services, and not that I need to preach about the barbershop, but it's a relaxed service where you go there and you get to chill out for 20 minutes and have a just shoot the shit with somebody for 20 minutes and have a normal conversation with someone outside of your household who you've been talking to for the last 3 months,
yeah,
versus when you're in there for a treatment. It's different
yeah,
because it's very sterile. It's very, we're gonna do this. I don't think it's as laid back as what you'd get where the social aspect of this is also necessary.
yeah.
Um, could it be considered therapeutic? You know what? I've talked some guys through some
Absolutely.
pretty serious shit out of my chair,
Yeah,
and it's another friend who is
yeah,
also providing a service. So I think that there is a lot of and that look good, feel good thing. If you look like
yeah.
shit, you feel like shit. There's something about a fresh cut that you walk out feeling a little better about yourself.
Well, it's something that one of my friends that went through the military, he told me that if you always see back in the day, like World War II and stuff, they always had the shaving kits and whatnot,
Yeah,
and there is a psychological link to shaving and being clean, haircut, to the morale of an individual, especially during traumatic times.
yeah,
And that's that look good, feel good. And again, like just going back to my mom, like there was a definite change. Like after she went and got her hair done, she was so happy.
yeah,
And like it's one of these things where when we talk about there's a lot of talk in Canada now about mental health and whatnot.
yeah,
This should be linked. Like we talked about, I heard you mentioning about the kids and wearing the masks, and
yeah,
you know it's all a part of it, because I think that not being able to just be yourself, if you look in the mirror and you've got this scraggly dude,
yeah,
it's having an impact. And over, like a couple of months, sure, year and a half,
yeah.
you're looking at, it's a shit show.
It's bad. I mean, I think that the mental impact on people is it's changed so much in this last year from the beginning to the middle to the end. And I don't know if we're at the end yet, but people aren't happy. People
No.
aren't. You feel like you're sneaking around if
Mm.
you visit your neighbor in your driveway. Like
Yeah.
it's bad. You're looking over your shoulder, thinking, "Is the Gestapo coming after us?" And that's the
Oh,
problem. Where
exactly.
well, and you said you saw these people that are showing these pictures of the Holocaust victims and how you fall in line or else. Well, the problem is people do feel like they're being watched and policed
Yep.
in a different fashion, and they're scared to socialize. Now, what about kids? Are they going to be scared of other kids? Are they going to want to socialize? Are they going to have the ability to socialize? When they're
Yeah.
young, they're learning how to react to people, and right now, there's no people to react to.
Well, I like one of the things, because I spend a lot of time teaching young kids, and the kids here when they go to school, there's not a lot of time to socialize. They're going from like 8 o'clock in the morning to probably 10 or 11 o'clock at night. If they're in
Wow,
high school, it's even later. And what
wow,
they do is they go from school to, say, like an after school program, to a private academy to study math, English, and science.
hmm
And like they are pushed to the limits. And where I see a lot of the issues is that because they're not being able to socialize naturally, it's always in a classroom. They leave school, they get on a bus, they go to the academy, they do their class, they get on a bus, they go to the next one. And a lot of the kids don't have the social, I'm not sure the exact term, but like they don't have like the independence that I see a lot of the kids in Canada have, where
Right.
they're, you mentioned before about like the schoolyard rules.
Yep.
Um, the kids here don't have that, and you know me, like back in the day, I wasn't a big organized sports fan, but I did see the power of allowing kids to be a part of a team, allowing kids to socialize and to play sport and to do things on their own. And where I think the biggest impact is going to be is when you have all this homeschooling, especially, this is coming from, like, I've got a master's in education. So
Yep.
part of that is where I'm looking at it from my background. I'm There's two parts to it. There's the education, like the schoolwork side, but there's also the socialization. And I
Yep.
firmly believe that schools should be a place for kids to socialize, to learn who they are, to develop their own personality, and they're not getting that because they're just
No.
sitting in front of a screen for 6 to 8 hours or however long they do it back home, and then
Oh, hang on a second. It's not that much. Trust me.
oh
We have such a fractured education system right now. First of all, the teachers don't want to do it. I don't believe they
yeah,
want to do it. Secondly, they're also teaching some kids at school, and some kids
uh,
are getting taught home. So if you have again, if you're there's essential workers, then there's critical workers. Now, because I'm
okay.
in real estate, I'm considered essential, so I can still show houses and do this and that and everything else. Thank
Mm-hmm.
God I'm doing that. But we're not critical. Critical would mean first responders, teachers,
Yeah.
nurses, doctors, gas station attendants, yeah, grocery grocery clerks, yeah,
um you
those are
can't pump
critical.
your own gas.
Apparently you can't. Apparently you can't. So I said, I go, why can't my kids be in school right now? And they go to a small school. They go to St. Augustine. So I mean, there's only 20.
Okay.
They only take 20 kids in a year, so which means they
Hmm.
had 20 kids per class, and they split those 20 into two groups of 10, and that wasn't spaced out enough. Now I said, you're telling me if I was pumping gas for a living, my kids would be in school right now? He goes, yeah, sadly, yeah, that's the truth.
Ah,
Yeah,
Jesus Christ.
and what they're getting for schoolwork is minimal. Like, honest as shit.
Oh
They
my
should have
God.
just axed the year and said, "We're gonna come back a month early and wrap this
Yeah.
up, and then continue on the next year." Because they're not getting an education right now. What they're getting is they're getting activities and they're getting a little bit of homework. Thank God they're only in kindergarten and grade 2, but kindergarten and grade 2, they're learning all the important stuff.
Yeah.
And they're not this if you I should really send you what they're getting, and it's piss all. They're not
Oh
getting
my
an
God.
education right now. It is sweet piss, and I don't believe that this year, these 2 years are not going to help them develop um, academically
Yeah.
at all. They're just running through the paces to get to the end of the month, which is when
Yeah.
the end of the school year is, and that's it. And they're going to go in ill prepared. Like anybody who's graduating, they got rid of provincial exams this year in high school. You graduate, you don't have to have the standardized test right now. Isn't
Jesus.
that dumb? So are you ready for university? Don't know. You got your grade 12. I guess you are. They got rid of
That
that.
Oh my God. Because, like for Korea, like during the height, I think my wife's like actually works at a school. I think she was out for a couple of weeks while they tried to figure out what to do.
Yep.
And then that was about the only time. And I think they like rotate. I think some of the kids, the older kids stay home and then the younger kids go to school. But she's been constantly teaching. Like she goes to school every day and she teaches. And again, like the after school academies, the where the kids learn the bulk, they're
Yep.
still open. So it's business as usual. And again, um, my like if I remember from like when I was in the school system, minimum per class, I had 40 students.
Yeah, probably back then.
And
Now it's a lot less.
well, like I mean, for Korea, like this is
Oh,
probably
yeah.
about 40 students per class. Like the small school I worked at had 900 students, and that's just in the one area.
Yeah.
And like so, there is no space to really. like I was talking to a teacher friend when I was back home, and she's showing me pictures of her classroom, and in like my wife sent me pictures of her classroom. They just put up a plastic shield around, like a clear plastic shield around. The kids have to wear masks and they
Yeah.
sanitize, but business as usual. And there's been very few outbreaks, and the outbreaks were actually started by the father bringing it home.
Yeah.
But she just had like a close call a little while ago, but that was it. Like, so it's not like the
Well,
kids are just back in school. Yeah,
they're blaming the schools on the outbreaks now, when that isn't necessarily the case. And I think they're just spitballing shit and saying we're going to shut down everything that we find as being disposable. Education being one of them, because we don't keep education is not on the level where it is where you are. It's minimum at best. And like here, you talk about how long they're on in front of the screen. Our daughter has about a 20-minute session with her kindergarten teacher in the morning.
yeah,
Our
yeah.
son has two 40-minute sessions in front of the computer with a teacher when she takes time off from her classroom that's got kids in it. And then they get a little bit of homework to do and maybe a little bit of reading. It's nothing. That's not an education.
No, no.
That is calling it in. You know what? There's so many people out there that are TAs or EAs or whatever you call them. Have them running those things all day long so the kid's in front of something. You got EAs
Yeah,
that were helping kids out. Well, here you go. You're going to be the one on the Zoom call while the teacher gives you the work to deliver to the other students. They could do that.
it's like,
And I'm
wow,
not a
because
teacher, so I might be wrong.
no, like that boggles my head, because like I did basically 90% of my master's degree online,
Right.
and it was a synchronous class with Nova Scotia. So it was 12 hours. So every morning I would get up at 4 or 5 in the morning for my class, and it was a 4 hour block. And granted, that was a master's level class, it was university,
Yeah.
but the technology to be able to, like, they have breakout rooms, and you can use the what do you call it, like the whiteboards and whatnot. Like, it
Yeah.
can be interactive. Like, I use this technology to create a dynamic classroom, for dudes that are sitting in their office, but um, the technology is still there for the kids, and I'm blown away by the fact that um, it the school system can't get itself together to come up with a plan. And I know the teachers are working hard. I know that there's a clusterfuck there too.
Yep.
But again, this is a matter of, if it's been on a year and a half now, where is the funding, where is the budget to be able to like flood into the schools to get either the system back up online, to get the technology there, to get
They've
the kids, you know
they've had a year and a half to figure this out.
yeah.
And if these are educators, they should be able to figure it out by now. I mean,
And then,
it could have been done. It could, like I said, we could have done better. We just didn't do it. And for some reason, we're just not, whether they don't want to spend the money or what, but this is going to bite them in the ass going
yeah,
forward because we dropped the ball in so many things.
yeah, like, I mean, again, going back to like the technology, this is 2021. Like, if it was 1996 or even early 2000s, I could understand, like, we had textbooks in physical form,
Yeah.
you know, but again, like, where I'm thrown back by this is, again, what you said, like, 2 40-minute classes. Um, I, there's people complaining about this, and I'm just sitting there thinking, like, yeah, like, there's kids here, again, densely populated. They're on buses or whatnot, but they're following protocol. They've got shields in the and whatnot in the classroom, and I'd say most of the kids, if they don't get it from an outside source, they're safe,
Yep.
and they're sanitized. They're and it's hard. Like, I mean, I've been in classrooms where, like, when I part of the reason why I stopped teaching the young kids, it was just because I kept getting sick. Like, they're vectors of disease in some
Oh,
cases. There's
dude.
fingers going up in any orifice, and like, but now, and it's almost, Yeah, like it's almost impossible to think that, but there has been very few cases stemming from schools here, and I think it's because part of what the kids are being taught is they come to class, they get sanitized, they all got their masks on, and it's done as done. There's no excuses being made. It's not, oh well, I've got, Timmy's got this mysterious disease that I'm not going to tell you about, but he can't wear his mask.
Yeah,
Everybody just goes, and and that's a double-edged sword. Like, it's a little bit insensitive if you do have a pre-existing condition, but that was the other thing. Like, where were all these pre-existing conditions before COVID when you were told to put on your mask, and then suddenly it's like, I've got an eighth degree asthma that I can't put on a paper mask.
dude, we live in Manitoba. It gets to be 40 below here. You're
Yep.
telling me you can't wear a mask, but you're sure as shit gonna wear a balaclava when you go snowmobiling?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
And
don't give me that shit.
but and I think that's linking to this thing where it's like there's too many excuses being made where um in here, like, it was just, if you want to get groceries or if you want to go outside, you don't pass go. You put that mask on, and
Yeah,
it just got ingrained into the culture that you just, when you leave your apartment, you put the mask on, and that's it.
yeah,
When I go to my classes at the factory, I mean, yeah, I can have it in my car, I can take it off, but as soon as I get onto the factory grounds, mask is on, and that's just the way it is. I forgot my mask the other day, and I was just running back into the apartment, and I felt naked. Like, it's just that ingrained, and I was getting dirty looks from everybody, and I was just
yeah.
covering my mouth like, sorry, sorry, but that's how it
And
is here.
well, and even here, like I went into my truck because I couldn't find my masks anywhere in the house. Where the hell are my masks? I had three of my masks sitting in my truck
Yeah,
because I just always have one hanging off the gear shift. You just have it, and you feel like an idiot if you forgot it. Like
yeah.
I grabbed a mask today. I went to the nursery to grab some Saskatoon bushes I planted in the backyard, but I grabbed I had to move Kelsey's car out of the way because I need the truck. So I
Hmm.
pulled her car out, threw my wallet into her cup holder because it was in my hand, and had my mask, had my phone, went to the nursery. Well, shit. I got there, no wallet. So I'll grab
Oh,
my mask before I grab my wallet. It became normal. And isn't it ridiculous how it's such a teeny tiny little price to pay? Wearing
yep.
a mask is a pretty tiny thing, and people are refusing to do it. And if we would have done this, I'm sure that was the saving grace in Korea. Everybody just did that.
Well, that's exactly it, because it was like, we get some pretty nasty dust here. We got what's called misemonji, which is like fine dust, and it's nasty. Like,
Mhm.
it's basically, I think it's like fine particulate matter coming out from the Gobi Desert, and that crosses through China and all the industrial sections in Korea, and it just is nasty. If you have any allergies, they just go off the fucking charts.
Yeah.
Kind of around this time, but so people normally got used to wearing masks here, and one of the things I really did notice was is that, again, like, going back, they made the highest quality masks that they could in a short amount of time, and then they just made it appealing to people. So they had, like, they have K94, which is the N95 mask, so it's the
Yeah.
same protection as like the medical grade stuff,
Yeah.
and then they just made like it just accessible. So
Yeah.
right now you go and you can get different colors, different
Yeah.
shapes, and it's, you're not being forced to wear a tube sock. It's
Yeah.
it's that high level, and the only time if you don't have it, that's when people look at you. But, like, again, like, there's always going to be a stash of masks in front of the door, but 98% of the people, 99%, leave their house with their masks on. The biggest trouble that they have is just, as I said, like, social distancing,
That's
because
impossible.
yeah, like, and Koreans themselves are not, like, there's no personal space.
Yeah.
Like I was saying, like, I was out taking pictures, and this dude is just like shoulder to shoulder with me. Now
Yeah.
I'm just like, dude, like, seriously, we're out by the ocean. Like, go 30 paces that way. Like, fuck off. And like, because I'm a foreigner, he's just like, oh, I want to see. And I'm like, dude, he's got like a cigarette. So he's got his like mask kind of pulled off. And he's got a cigarette hanging out. I'm like, I don't know where you've been, so just fuck off.
See that
And
that
Yeah.
visual right there is a visual of a man who, one, cares about his health, and two, doesn't care about his health.
Well, that's sort of it. Like it's like, well, I have to wear this thing, but I'm just gonna, have a smoke. And it's funny you bring that up because, like, you know, one last thing I'll say is like the amount of like smoking and drinking here is like off the charts. Like,
Really?
oh yeah, like I've got friends that came from Canada and started smoking again because when we first came, it was $2 a pack, and now
Yeah.
it's gone up to about 5. But there's no like if you look at the intersections, there's just piles of butts. Like it's not regulated like it is in Canada. I can
Jeez.
go to the corner store and like I don't drink, as you know, but like my
Mm.
friends, like they love the you can get 4 cans of import beer for $10, like the tall boys.
Yeah.
And it's just like that's what people do. Like they sit outside the like the 7-Eleven. They have those here. No slushies though, but or
Yeah.
Slurpees. But they just get shit faced drunk and they go home. I found Moosehead here for $1.80 in the store the other
Really?
day. Yeah, tall can.
It's still a good beer. I'm not
Yeah,
a big drinker, and that's the thing. I've known you, like I said, we worked together at BP back then. You never drank. Like I don't
no,
think I ever knew you to drink at all.
I stopped when I was about, I think, after my 18th birthday. I
Oh,
had a
okay.
big I think I had a big shit show at BP's, and then we went to where did we go after that? We went
Yaks.
to Yaks. I got kicked out of Yaks actually. Uh,
I
I,
used to bounce at Yaks.
it's probably you that kicked me out, but no, I
Oh,
think it was. I just remember I went and tossed my cookies in the toilet there, and they come out, and then the bouncer's just like, "Dude, you're done." And
oh,
I think that was the about where I kind of lost track of the night. But we were at what was the strip club down by
Sassy's.
downtown? Was that the one down by 10th Street there, or is it?
Yeah, yeah, that
Yeah,
was Sassy's.
yeah. I think like Steve took me there, Sassy's,
Yeah, yeah.
and yeah, it was a wild night. But that was the last night I drank, which
Really?
which which is hilarious because like here, um, it's basically like you drink, like part of the business culture here is you get shit faced drunk with your company. It's changing now, but yeah, like it's basically you go out and get drunk, you eat dinner, and then that's how you do business.
Wow. No, and the thing is here when someone says they don't drink, it's generally because they had a drinking problem at one time. Where I don't I don't drink much. Like I drink, but I'm not
Yeah,
a drinker. There's a difference, right?
yeah.
Um, but no, it's an interesting culture thing because here, yeah, it's not like that. I think people do have a whiskey or something with somebody, but
Oh,
it's not
it's
getting plastered with the people you're doing business with.
it's intense here. Like it's like puking in the street is not frowned upon. Passing out somewhere is not frowned upon, and it's generally safe. Like you will wake up from your pass out with your keys and your cell phone, and no one's going to touch you.
Really?
But it's funny, like the park that like I walk through some mornings, like yeah, you'll just step over guys who are just sleeping on the bench from a little bit.
Jesus.
And like soju is the drink of choice, and it's like diesel fuel. Like you can clean a table with it. I've seen it.
Ugh.
Yeah. So,
So
but
what time is it there now? Like we're what,
it's
14 hours apart?
yeah, it's about 11:40, which means I should probably get going. But yeah,
Oh,
it's
really? So
yeah, I should probably
is
get.
it yesterday or is it you're
It's
heading to work then?
tomorrow. Yeah, I'm heading to work, so it's tomorrow for you.
Oh, it's yeah. See, I'm talking to the future. Well, hey, man, you know what? Thank you so much for coming on. We talk about
Oh,
this. I mean, you were my inspiration for the podcast that I started through
oh, thank
your
you.
podcast because I like
Oh wow.
shit. If JT can do this, I listen to yours. I'm like, I can do
It's
this.
and I think you've outpaced me. Like I have started listening to yours, the guests that you've had on. Like I'm honored to be on here because like I've listened to like all these guys like radio hosts, and I'm just like holy shit. Like
Dude, you have no idea how fired up I was when you texted me. You're like, I got a couple hours today to talk. I'm like,
yeah,
holy shit. I told my wife, okay, I got to get downstairs because I'm doing a podcast. JT's in Korea. We're going to talk, and there's a big time difference, and you probably have to get to work. But you know
Yep,
what? We'll do this again. I will keep in touch for
definitely.
sure. And thanks for coming on and enlightening us on what is going on there and how honest as shit we did it wrong here. There is a
Yeah,
way to change it. And you know what? Your podcast before I let you go is how do you pronounce this?
Sajin.
Sajin, the
Yep,
Sajin Photography Podcast.
yep, yep.
Listen to JT. You're on Spotify, right?
I'm on all the major ones, so Spotify, Apple, it's all there.
Look him up. Listen to him. He's super awesome. We go back a long ways. We work together. We're all from the same town, and to have
Yep.
Brandon boy out in Korea right now talking to us when he really needs to get to work. I
Yep.
appreciate it, man.
All right,
So
I appreciate it too. Thanks.
you know what? We'll keep in touch, and I love looking at your photos every time I see them. It's amazing that it's like you're on another planet.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
All right, buddy. Thank you for everything, and stay safe out there, and get to work.
I will. All right,
All
thanks,
right,
man.
buddy. Thank you so much.